"Rita, take your team," the nurse said cheerfully. They rolled in a young mother, a crib on wheels with babies. Only yesterday she gave birth. And when she recovered a little from the birth, they were not so simple. She gasped and even shed a tear. She had triplets, 3 girls at once. Rita even herself. I couldn't tell myself at first. What feelings at that moment I experienced, of course, great joy that she became a mother, that the children were born healthy and strong because she wanted it so much. She was so happy when she found out she was pregnant. Now when the covers lay in front of her, 3 little bodies, she felt the most real tenderness for the children. Even though she didn't even know what to call whom, didn't know who was calm and who was picky, the main thing at that moment she thought was to feed each one and try so hard that everyone would get their share, not to deprive anyone of milk. Oh, suddenly it burned her, and at least I have enough milk for them. After all, everyone says that there is nothing better than mother's milk. Although various vaunted mixtures are good, mother's milk is better. Having managed, with the help of a nurse, to feed and swaddle the babies, she saw her girls for the first time. Ulia, so tiny, so dear, the best children in the world. Margarita decided to call her husband to share her impressions with him. She wanted Anton to understand her condition. He supported Lefon's words. They didn't take him for a long time, but finally, then the husband answered, prim, knowing who was calling in a cold voice, as it seemed. "Yes, Rita, what do you have there? I have a meeting soon. Time is running out. Oh, Antosha. Hello, I have sent to inform you our children, although small in weight, but completely healthy, were born. I am also fine. I fed for the first time. Our girls barely managed to cope with the young mother. Is not funny. And how greedily they drink milk. Was afraid that there would not be enough for everyone." Rita fell silent, hoping that her husband would pick up this topic and start asking in detail, what is it like, who the daughters look like, and so on. And in response, she only heard, "Well, if everything is going well, then that's fine. I don't have time to go to production right now. I need to urgently get some kind of LODs there. Then you will tell me." Stunned by such a reaction, Rita hastened to ask immediately about the World Cup. "Let it not be a priority matter of this very same me. They told me in 4 days, if the Supreme Court is good, they will discharge already. Yes. You know it is unlikely as a cold shower." He doused her with his words, already herself. "As I'm leaving on a business trip this evening." Short beeps were heard on the phone. Rita's hands literally dropped. Antonis leaving, and how will she take care of him to bring him home, and what is all the swearing needed? There are 3 of them. There will be a bunch of different things. A tunts need a crib stroller. How come a business trip leaves here? She remembered everything connected with her acquaintance with her husband, with their relationship before and after marriage. Although, to be honest, Anton, with whom she was still dating at that time, having learned about her interesting situation, did not jump for joy at all, but still, as a responsible person, it happened. It was necessary to register the marriage, so now she is a mother of 3 girls at once. Rita, immediately I thought about something else too. My God, 3 of them at once. How can I manage them? How can I feed them, swaddle them? Mother-in-law Nina Mikhailovna will certainly help, and there's no doubt about it. She's been trying on the role of a grandmother for a long time now, but the trouble is that she's gotten sick for some reason. She's just before the birth, as if she didn't. At first, she had to take care of the armed forces herself. Rita was in a poor family. Her father and mother worked at their jobs, and they earned a certain salary. This money was only enough for the bare necessities. They could do little to help. Her grandfather and grandmother were former peasants, and during Rita's maidenhood, they were already pensioners, and they could only farm their own garden. They gave vegetables, fruits, sometimes there was meat, cattle. The old people kept them all the time. And of course, when the girl had already started dating guys, she wanted to at least taste a little of the botoy life, so that they would take her to the Nagoya River. After all, it looked so chic in the TV series, filling the TV screens with her peers. It wasn't interesting, but when I managed to meet Anton, a young entrepreneur, then Rita lost her head and still would have college where she was studying to be an accountant at the time. Anton drove up in a brand new foreign car after classes. All the girlfriends looked at the groom with envy, proudly without looking around. Importantly, sat down on the leather seat. And the next day, during the break between lectures, the girlfriends listened with their eyes wide open to Rita about where they had gone with Anton. Although she was in the restaurant for the first time then, She tried to describe with the air of a regular what was served on the table. What music the orchestra played, how they danced, and everyone around admired the beautiful couple. And even if from all this it was true that there was only a short dinner. How pleasant it was for Rita to realize that she had already experienced such pleasures that her girlfriends could only dream of it. Later, recalling her triumph and delight, she began to understand that the young man simply wanted to create a good impression of himself as a generous, gallant gentleman, sincerely admiring her beauty. But in fact, he needed her for entertainment. Well, it's like a beautiful toy, and you feel good about it, and you can show it off to your friends. That's it. It turned out that as soon as she got pregnant, she immediately felt a chill in the relationship, but she didn't attach any importance to it. Then when she and Anton started living together, her mother-in-law, who lived in the suburbs in a private house. At first, Rita came to visit especially often. She immediately liked the girl. She willingly talked about herself and her family, about what she was doing in college, how she was worried about preparing to defend her diplomas. The foreign language of 10 prepares any wife family life, yes. Anton, her sheik, knew perfectly well the business was inherited by him from his late father. Therefore, he took the production clearly, organized by his father, as a given yes, and about his relationship to the girls also had a rough idea, but she unobtrusively taught Rita to do housework, especially since she herself could only feed giants with them before. Margarita Anton's romance with his lover descended on his initiative quickly and easily, and without any complications. And in the case of his current wife, everything happened differently. She got pregnant. Anton was a guy who loved to enjoy life. If he liked a girl, he would immediately him there cheerfully and had a good time. Only the feeling that the matter was Narat says turnover carried away the guy's work was in the first place his projects. But when he got tired of his affairs, he looked for entertainment. Yes, for now. To be honest, he was not going to connect his fate with anyone. So there was a frivolous relationship, no obligation to anything, no one owes anything to anyone. That was his principle. Only the joy of a smile and a great mood. That was how it was with Rita, until she got pregnant. Anton realized that he had gotten into trouble. A girl he didn't love because of pain got pregnant with his wife. She sees it as a hobby and nothing more. And the guy, feeling guilty before the unborn child, did not want to seem like a bastard and proposed to her. Rita remembered how happy she was that she was expecting a child and immediately told her lover about everything. "Darling, I will make you happy. You will become a dad. We will have a child. That's right, exciting." And June expected. I'm in shock myself, to be honest. My beloved wasn't happy at all. On the contrary. How is that possible? We were careful. You're absolutely sure that made me so happy. I don't even know what you are. Say at work so many projects to do. I somehow didn't expect to change diapers in the foreseeable future. Yes, listen to the baby's screams. You've already been to the doctor. What else can be done? Well, think about it. We're still so young and hear the child. Rita's not. I could believe what I heard, and like a little girl, I burst into tears and started wailing. Don't yell at me. I haven't been to the doctor yet. What are you hinting at? I don't even want to think about it. You'll leave me now, and I'm a fool. I thought you really loved me. The girl ran away. She was confused, humiliated, and didn't know what to do. She drew terrible pictures in her head. She thought she would tell her parents everything. What a disgrace. But a day later, Anton himself came with flowers, shrugged Rita, and quietly said, "Forgive me for reacting like that. The nits from shock. Everything will be fine and not. I'll leave you. I told your mom everything. She's not against it, so we'll get married soon. You can't see your belly yet." Rita threw herself on her beloved's neck, and at that moment they happily celebrated the wedding and started living together. And that's where her fairy tale ended. Anton V. soft and left her husband alone. Especially then she gave it to Rita at night to cook a delicious dinner to serve, to sit together, hugging and dreaming about the future. But time passed. Anton didn't show up. The cold and untouched dinner and stood on the table until the morning. Rita fell asleep after midnight. Without waiting for her husband, he showed up closer to the morning, citing a backlog at work. Some third shift parts are not working out to told defects. He made excuses or did not come at all. The knit was a business trip a little later. The ultrasound showed that Rita's pregnant with triplets. Now she is already thinking about whether to tell her husband about this, given his previous reaction. But one day Rita VS chose what seemed to her a convenient moment and told Anton that they will not have one child but triplets at once, which is what Rita was afraid of. And she heard from it was indignation and even anger for him, as if she was to blame for the fact that the children were so many that we will do some kind of horror to them. And why exactly 3? And there can't be less. It's getting worse, hour by hour. Rita grabbed her head with her hands, covered her ears with her palms so as not to hear these offensive words. Her eyes filled with tears, and she burst into tears. My God, why am I being punished like this? Am I doing this to myself? Imagine life with Anton. It seemed to me that I would be behind him, as if behind a stone wall. His brevity instilled in her confidence in a happy family life. He so collapsed her, swore his love, and even made plans for the future. And this is how it all turned out in the end. And where did all this go? Paraded children, it turns out, were not included in his plans, as well as Rita herself. She existed in his houses separately from him by herself. There was essentially noon to complain about feeling unwell. Asked to cry on health was a scrap. It was hard on Rita not know what to do. At least come back home, but she didn't want to upset their family with an unsuccessful marriage. Pretended that everything was fine with her, although almost every day, Rita cried and prayed to God that it wouldn't happen to her miscarriage or premature birth, unlike Anton. Rita really wanted children to the first words, Mom, Dad. What could be happier in life? Life is empty and in vain if there are not children. It is boring to live if your blood does not meet you from work hanging on your neck. Kissing and hugging such a family, Rita built an idyll in her imagination. Sometimes, in such dreams, she did not notice how she fell asleep. And when she woke up, she saw her classmates and teachers who were awarded certificates of merit for good academic performance. She had 2 bosom friends. They all lived close to each other. They went to and from school together. They shared each other with a friend with the most intimate thoughts, secrets together. Went on a date, joked, and were naughty, red-haired. After all, Mom and Dad have light brown hair, and their type is completely different. Somehow strange. Rita herself often wondered which of her relatives she got such red curls and cheerful. Ross would have freckles on her nose. My mother claimed that she took after her great-grandmother. Maybe so. Who knows? When Rita remembered her grandparents, her heart immediately warmed in childhood. Rita spent almost all her summer holidays with them. How they loved their granddaughter. They doted on her. They did everything to please her, feed her something tasty for school. Always dressed her grandfather, made 2 swings. And behind the garden at Grandma's there was a river in the summer, a hot day. It's just beauty. Swim as much as you want during the summer. Read at Grandma's sunbath, gaining strength and energy, fresh air, fresh milk. And what delicious steamed dumplings Grandma cooked with cottage cheese and with strawberries. It was Grandma who bought their first expensive and very beautiful black dress. This not the chintz that everyone wore on a weekday. Its coloring was very flattering with red hair, and Rita had fiery red, gorgeous, incredibly beautiful wavy waterfall built on the shoulders in childhood. Rita boy teased because of her red hair, and her grandparents called hair our sunshine. For Mom and Dad she was Goldilocks. But when Rita grew up, this red color favorably distinguished her from other girls. Their red-haired beauty attracted increased attention to herself, while Rita had fair skin and green eyes, which further emphasized her beauty. It was impossible not to notice her in the crowd. In general, Rita had unique and extraordinary appearances, seduces, but her beauty did not help her. Her husband does not love her, since he will not even come to the maternity hospital to pick her up. The woman could not find herself having taken out. From her memories she was shaking. The children were just walking back and forth and kept thinking what to do next. Even her mother-in-law called and wanted to say in her heart everything she thought about her beloved son. But only after hearing the weak voice of Nina Mikhailovna, she changed her mind, and she felt so worried. She kept asking, "How you were doing, Ritoshka? How are my grandchildren?" "Forgive me, girl, what am I not nearby at all? Fell ill at the wrong time. The HC all at once, and the pressure is under 200, and my back is cramped, right up my legs. I can hardly walk. And Toshka is nearby. He is with you alone. At least it is easier with 3 kids when you are discharged from me as soon as I feel better. I will immediately come to you to congratulate and help." Rita, swallowing tears, said, "Anton on a business trip, but it's okay. I'll manage. Get well. Don't worry, everything will work out." Somehow Nina Mikhailovna immediately sensed something was wrong. Her daughter-in-law's voice was completely downcast. She knew her son very well and immediately began calling him and counting down more. "Business trip, your wife is slimmer in the maternity hospital, discharge in the next few days. What are you thinking at all? Or have you decided to finish? Yuzalov, how do you think?" "Rita will get home, I'm asking you," the man answered frivolously. "Mommy, don't push it and don't worry. You can't. Rita has already pressed. I have urgent matters. Nothing will happen. If it take a taxi home, will arrive and won't fall apart. Okay, I'm in a hurry. I heard music and some young lady's laughter in the background. Short beep started. Understood there was no business trip. Her son was another prostitute and thought, well, who is he so flighty in? What will happen to Rita? She liked it. She didn't feel sorry for her. As a woman, understanding that SNT of fate therefore firmly decided that she would help her daughter-in-law with all her might, just to get back on her feet as quickly as possible. The day of discharge had arrived, but Rita's mood was worse than ever. She kept putting it off, calling her husband endlessly, but he didn't pick up the phone, and this offended the woman even more. And then a nurse entered the room and stunned her, delighted, and she went down to the emergency room as quickly as she could, looking for her husband, because she still hoped that Anton had changed his mind and, like a normal person, would take her from the maternity hospital with his 3 daughters. But there was no husband in the room except for some elderly man in glasses. It wasn't here. Rita was confused. Someone came for her. After all, that's what the nurse said the other day. You're right, Rita. That's exactly how I imagined you, he asked her. Yes, the young mother answered perplexedly, and you? Forgive me, who I don't know you. Yes, yes! Of course you can't know me. And I can say that I recognized you for the first time. The old man replied, I'll pick you up from the maternity hospital. Don't worry, everything will be fine. You'll see the envelopes and everything you need. I gave it to the nurse. The taxi is already waiting for us. Don't look at me like that. I'm not crazy. I'll tell you everything at home. I won't offend you. Don't worry. I found out everything about you, and I'll help you out of a difficult situation. Nothing more. Rita has completely stopped understanding anything. Who is this old man? How does he relate to her? Where is he actually going to take her from here with 3 little ones? And is it even possible for him trust? And just then the doctor who delivered Uri came into the waiting room, and seeing the old man, she splashed her hands and joyfully exclaimed, Platon. Sergeyevich, what fate brought you to us? You missed your previous job. What a meeting. Yes, to be honest, and haven't changed much. Well, no need to flatter, I'm not a beautiful maiden. I don't need to be made comfortable, the old man said good-naturedly, laughing. I'm also pleased to see you. I've heard to confess about your successes. Oh, by the way, it seems you also delivered this beauty. Nodding at Rita, he asked, and how babies come on share. Yes, in general, everything is fine with them. So pleased with the forest characteristic, the doctor answered. Everything is as it should be in babies. They eat. Sometimes they cry. If you meant some pathologies, then there is no such thing, thank God. And then turning to Margarita, she told her, this is our former employee, honored obstetrician. He delivered hundreds of babies in his life, and in the most difficult cases demonstrated his highest skill to us. Why didn't you tell us that you have such a birth as you passed? Smiling good-naturedly. Excellent, Platon Sergeyevich. Here, take flowers and candy, as expected. V.S. in such cases. Rita had no choice but to follow the doctor. Her pseudo-relative ordered a taxi. The medical staff, with their combined efforts, carried her the cart. The children's things helped to sit down, and Rita with Platon Sergeyevich soon, for which already dissatisfied henna and athome, for them already, and milk formula was ready. And then when the little ones were lineally, Rita was simply amazed how deftly, despite her age, does it the owner of the house, where there she is young for him to have time sat down to dinner and talking about different things. Platon Sergeyevich suddenly said, and when I found out that you ended up in the maternity hospital, I immediately assumed that there would be more than one. Baby, you see, you guessed pretty well. He added, and why did you find out about me in particular? Because how many women give birth? What caused your interest? I can't understand, Rita asked in bewilderment. You see, after a pause, the old doctor said there was such a story that it will be hard for you to believe that it is true. I promised to remain silent and kept my oath for many years. But I couldn't resist when I found out that you were giving birth to Prosha Navoy, and he began to tell many years ago when Platon Sergeyevich was still at the peak of his medical skills. Somehow they invited me to the regional health department. They gathered several of the best obstetricians and gynecologists there and suggested not to advertise the experiment. The essence of it was as follows. Women who could not get pregnant naturally were offered to do it artificially. Such an innovation was then only being introduced in domestic clinics. Platon Sergeyevich gave to this consent parents of such potential mothers. But this and I know that it is possible to get pregnant stopped him Rita and I here. What interest do I represent today? Artificial insemination is already widely used. But Platon Sergeyevich was not embarrassed by this remark and he OTV cooled tea continued worrying. It turns out the matter was in that the experiment had a certain failure in the artificial conception procedures and suddenly became pregnant in a similar way. Spirium give birth in pairs and the other twins who was observing her interlocutor and was Rita's mother in the girl's head and so tired from today's experiences in general everything got mixed up. What is she talking about? This old man to her person if she was the only child in her family. So she told Platon Sergeyevich ever had any brothers or sisters. You are probably confusing something. I am the only one with my parents. This is definitely not true, but only partly sighed. Hoya people answered, whom you call mom and dad are not your relatives. At this point, Rita completely stopped understanding anything. How could they not be relatives? They treated me so warmly. Despite their poverty, they tried to create the best conditions for me to live and study. And they denied themselves what they needed just so that I could dress or put on shoes. Even anger covered me that you are fooling me here by God. Maybe you are VPR crazy, as Kato said. That I am adopted, well, you know, this is too much. Rita even decided to leave this house before it is too late and has almost dialed her mother's number. It is scary to be left alone with madman, but Platon Sergeyevich literally begged to Margarita. Understand your conditions, a much news, not the most pleasant to tunts. Note everyone is able to digest. Well, listen to don't test black and white old photo there and right. There were 4 pregnant women with huge bellies. One of them was literally a copy of Rita herself. The resemblance is amazing. Rita automatically sat down on the sofa again. She realized the doctor wasn't lying and he continued, your mother's name was Elena Grigorieva. I remember her well, a bright, red-haired, beautiful young lady. She had no family, nor did she have a husband. She was already underage. She wanted to become a mother for herself. So she went on this risky experiment that cost her her life. I still can't forgive myself for it. We did everything we could, but we couldn't save her. The patient died right in the delivery room. An unprecedented commotion began. After all, it was secret. And then this happened. In general, we started thinking where to place the children. I understand separating twin sisters was inhumane, but there was no way out. Your sister was immediately taken by a rich woman and taken to another city about her fate. I don't know anything, but we couldn't identify you for another week. Then I remembered about one modest, not rich married couple of yours. The adoptive parents were childless and suffered greatly from this. They were registered with me, examined, treated, but there was no chance when I called them and told them about you. They seized this chance like a straw and immediately agreed to keep quiet about everything and take you into the family. After Alof, this R-script project was rolled up and closed. Everything zang to oblivion, so it turns out. Awesome, exclaimed Rita, I have a sister. It's just unbelievable. I can't believe it. And where is she now? Where to look for her? Yes, I myself don't know anything about her. The doctor sighed and answered, your adoption. I wasn't involved in other people. It's just that when your adoptive parents came to the maternity hospital for you, I was accidentally present at that time, their last names and residential address, and when I found out that you had given birth, I became interested in the building. You see, experimenters assumed that children artificially inseminated during those years that you were growing and developing. Almost no one who was involved in those old cases is no longer alive. I was the youngest there, and as for the death of your own mother, don't think anything bad, neither do I. Leading gynecologists from the region made so many efforts to save her. Alas, they failed. Now, if something like this were to happen now, the medicines are completely different and the treatment methods are the most modern. And don't be afraid of me, please. I just want to help you. The nurse told me in secret that no one comes to you and you secretly cry. In general, live with me as long as you want. It's only a joy to me. So here's the thing. I finally understood. There's news and even more. And all this in one day, and I decided to ask Platon Sergeyevich, are you the only one living here? Why did it happen? Yes, the old man answered sadly. His wife died several years ago, and after a pause he added, I also have a son, but he lives separately. But his fate is unfortunate. Apparently the old man wanted to tell someone about his pain, because in old age it is so difficult to find a person to whom you can Like Speak Pop Late, turns out the son has long been seriously interested in mountaineering, married by the way, during one of the hikes in the mountains with his future wife, and they have no children. Every summer, the son would definitely goof to conquer another mountain peak. At first, the wife also enthusiastically this sport, and then she got tired of it, and her husband, since then, reproach time, you say, went to the mountains. Now it doesn't go like that anymore. Rita asked. Yes, alas, no longer, sighed sadly. The elderly man answered. Misfortune happened to him on the last hike. Last in the summer, he fell into the abyss. It's good that he survived, but he damaged his spine when he fell. Now he moves around in a wheelchair. He added sadly to his wife after that. She scolded him for ruining his life and ruining hers because of his stubbornness. Now he lives alone. I also live alone because of pride. He doesn't want to burden me. He has strong arms and can't stand on his feet for long, so he learned to take care of himself somehow. That's how things are in my old age, so many problems. Now I can't envy you. Rita sympathized. And what? No treatment can help my son at all. There is hope for this, the unfortunate father answered. Modern methods allow operations to be performed on such patients. In the majority cases, it restores the body. People return to normal life. But such treatment is very expensive. I spent my last savings, sold the car, so that at least my son could live in this way. True, he was put on the waiting list for an operation, but there's a quo small, you have to wait a long time. And in this story there are other unpleasant things. After a moment of silence, Platon Sergeyevich added, when his son got married, he and his wife put their savings together and bought an apartment. Then they had such love, as in a fairy tale. Both thought that they would live together forever. But when they were registering this apartment, they registered it solely in the name of his wife. The son considered that this was of special significance. He doesn't have it. And now his wife is laughing at him to evict him from there through the courts. She wants a new family nest, Vit. Why does she need a colleague? And her son has completely lost heart because of this, and doesn't want to live. And my heart bleeds watching my only child suffer so much. They talked almost until midnight. Really had to pay attention, and little Rita carefully watched how skillfully the old doctor performed all the procedures, trying to remember everything. And in the morning, having coped with current affairs, she decided to call her husband. After all, she had to decide something. She couldn't live forever with this kind man. Now she can't go to her parents. How can she tell everything? But no matter how many times she dialed the number, there was only one answer. The subscriber was out of range. Then, in despair, she contacted husband. Rita started calling her mother-in-law, but there is no one else. Nina Mikhailovna complained that her condition would not return to normal. She listened to her daughter-in-law in surprise. Wait, how come he didn't pick her up from the hospital? Well, what is this? Well, let him not be able to do it himself, so on his own firm. Mott to someone to Darling, I sympathize with you so much. I understand your condition very well. Well, okay, I'll try to call him myself. Just tell me the address where this Platon Sergeyevich lives, by the way. Thank him on my behalf. He acted very nobly. Rita, in her heart, told me, I feel so ashamed for my husband and uncomfortable in front of a stranger, fall on his head with 3 children, as if I were an orphan. And I'm not the only one in our house. I'll need help. I can't cope with 3 on my own. He doesn't understand this. Nothing has been bought for the children, and he himself has disappeared without a trace. If he decided to leave me like that, let him say it straight out. The mother-in-law tried to calm her daughter-in-law down as best she could. She herself was terribly ashamed of what people would think. Gossip would got to who tell. Amuro, daughter-in-law, in the maternity hospital. Broly didn't take it. A disgrace let Hunley appear in front of the eyes. Platon Sergeyevich persuaded Rita call parents and tell them everything honestly. The conversation turned out to be difficult. Mother was soupset trust to save her daughter. Rita, well, is it possible? Why don't you consider us at all relatives with your husband? Lotta didn't meet from home, you scoundrel, and you're all silent. It's not known who you with. Couldn't you call us? So tell me where you are. My father and I are leaving right now. We'll take you and the children home, since that's the case. And how Rita didn't dissuade Mom in an hour. She was already on the spot. But seeing Platon Sergeyevich, she turned pale and almost fell down, fainted, realizing that he had told his daughter everything. The doctor managed to talk to Zinaida. calm her down, and assured her that in his spacious house, Riti would be much easier with the children than in a cramped one-room apartment. And you yourself, having many children, don't worry, I won't love you any less. You are the closest to Dad for me, people. Why didn't you call? I was ashamed. I didn't want to upset you that everything is not going well in the family. Can I stay with Platon Sergeyevich for now? Here is fresh air, there's space where to walk with the kids, but how we will all fit in such a crowd in our apartment, I can't imagine, and then with Anton for now. As it's not clear, let's make peace. Zinaida creaked her heart and agreed's wedding with her granddaughters left their daughters some money for the first time. They promised to bring strollers, necessary things for babies. Zinaida's soul was sheevish. She loved her daughters so much she never considered her adopted, and was very upset that her family had such problems. Her mother-in-law, on son, this has already crossed all boundaries of decency. What does he allow himself to do? What kind of husband is this that even didn't pick up his wife from the maternity hospital? Angry Mikhailovna called her son Anton, Welly or something. What are you doing there? We're so important that you don't even have time to bring your wife home from the maternity hospital. Strangers took you, what are you doing? I didn't think you'd go so far. That family is more important to you or some of your business, and now come back home, or else it will be too late. She loves you. She gave birth to children. She tries to please you in everything, and you acted so piggishly. Nina Mikhailovna couldn't stop. She so smashed the pressure, you will bring me to a heart attack. And she didn't stop. Well, how long will you be a bachelor? You've already exchanged your 4th decade. You need to start a family on time. This is the most important thing, and the most important thing. Call, okay, your mother, otherwise I'll worry. A prayer from your mother. Anton's cut. It dawned on him that he'd made a big mistake, and he needed to look some way out. Since the mother is already asking the question point blank, there look, the employees will also find out that he is an OTB, then you won't get away with shame. So they will discuss that their boss is with another mistress in a restaurant. After talking to his mother on the phone, he abruptly interrupted his meal and threw the girls on the run. Sorry, urgent nation, you will get home yourself, and he has already left. I called Reedy in the car to find out where she was now, and she said that she was at the doctor's house who once helped her come into the world. I don't understand why you went to some man. What did you find yourself a lover, decided to show me off to the whole world, light to disgrace? Why didn't you call me back again? What kind of tricks are these? Dare, Anton, trying to benefit yourself. Feeling that you are wrong, I called you many times, but you don't answer. How can you even bring yourself to talk such nonsense? Where did you goon a spree and with whom or? On your own, judge advancing. Rita could have gone to me mother or take a taxi a gin rage in front of Ree. From which Rita even got scared. He accused of everything mortals in suffer. Another self to talk in such a tone with her husband was offensive to her, and therefore made no sense. Rita turned off the phone. Her husband drove up to Platon Sergeyevich's house and jumped out of the car, loudly knocked on the gate from impatience that they were not opening, even began to kick her, cursing, and then the doctor came out to the noise. Young man, why are you rowdy? What happened? Rita, you have, well, I'll ask her now. Come on, let her go. This is my wife and I'm taking her home immediately. Anton said unceremoniously. Come on, take it easy. How are you behaving? Yes, you're full of alcohol. No, in this state, I won't let you see Rita or the children. I'm her husband. Let them immediately get ready to get up and take her to his place. Who are you anyway? Anton shouted. Rita carefully stuck her head out of the crack. The children were crying in the room. She was trying to calm her husband. Anton, stop yelling. You children scared, sober up first and ask for forgiveness. Otherwise, I won't come back to you. Man's impudent and aggressive behavior outraged the doctor and he shouted, leave. Rita doesn't want to see you, and if you misbehave, I'll call the police. Okay, Anton shouted angrily. Oh yeah, well then sit there, you stupid chicken. Some other Critch will teach me about life. You'll get bored. You know the way home. Anton, there was nothing left to do but retreat. Well, okay. She doesn't want to go. That's her business. I suggested it. She refused. And as if nothing had happened, I went to the same restaurant to continue the party. Platon Sergeyevich entered the house. Rita, who was watching what was happening from the window, was worried about what kind of demon had possessed Anton. I've never seen him like this. I'm afraid of him, and I don't want to go back to him, Nenny. A word about children. Nenny remorse and made me guilty. Don't worry so much, Rita. Well, you got yourself a husband who betrayed you at the most crucial moment and is still trying to whitewash himself. Will you really forgive him? How to live with him further? Will you agree? Platon, Sergeyevich Anton is a scoundrel and a bastard. I am convinced of this. These days that I have already calmed down with you. I feel so good here, I just rest my soul, but when I saw him I felt sick. I don't love him anymore and I'm even afraid. No, I won't be able to return to him under any circumstances. My life and peace of mind and the life of my children is more important than anything else. Let them continue to have fun. I reproach myself for not having figured out the man so quickly with him being mute to this ghoulie, and he changes women like gloves. It is unlikely that he will ever be able to start our family. Once a woman got married, she trusted Platon Sergeyevich, respected this wise man, and a kind person appreciated his integrity, thanked that he saved her and sheltered the children, helps to survive. A feral father takes care of her and her children. Thank you very much, Platon Sergeyevich, for the Supreme Court, for your golden heart. Not you, I don't know what I would do. God himself sent you to me. The world is not without good people. It turns out you have revealed a lot to me that I didn't know and didn't even suspect, like this incident with my sister, my mother, and the children. This information is the most important, the most valuable for me. How I would like to find my sister to see her. Sorry that now you have so many troubles and problems because of us. The doctor answered, don't make things up. I invited you myself on my own initiative. Everything will be fine for now. Just don't think about the bad. I care about the children. Everything will gradually get better, even if you don't reconcile with your husband. They'll give you maternity capital. You'll buy an apartment, and your parents will support you and help you. The next day, Rita prepared a delicious dinner with her grandchildren, baked a Medovic Platona servy was just and just in time. She came to his father's son Nikolai. A taxi drove up completely unexpectedly. The driver helped the disabled man roll out of the wheelchair. The happy father quickly went to open the gate for his son. Son, what a surprise. Well done for coming. I was honestly waiting for you. I admit I already miss you, father, hugged his son. What are we doing here? We will go to the house. Arita, by this time I've already set the table and invited the men. Sit closer. We're happy with what we have. In the room there were delicious and aromatic smells. The men settled down at the table and began to eat with appetite, and Ari praised most of all the feeling of warmth and comfort together with these people at dinner. The sweat was leisurely, about all sorts of help. SX Bausch. I go Anna loved to lick the inka from the jam, and Latin Sergeyevich cooked his signature buckwheat honey, which was served with tea with lemon balm. Kolya was a little shy, ate slowly and kept glancing at Rita. His gaze was short but frequent. If their glances crossed, he immediately shyly looked away. They whispered, and her eyes at that moment beamed with love. The man was afraid, show his sympathy for her. After all, he is disabled, and she is married. With 3 children, he didn't know how she would react. Nikolai asked permission to hold Mila, then Katya and Yulia. They were so funny, frowning, eyebrows knitted cheeks. Dooley kept asking how they were feeling. Twins. Does mom have enough milk? Do they leathers leap well? Rita, you are just a hero and mother. I can imagine how hard it is for you. But you gave birth to such beauties here. You are right only for the sake of your babies, and I am holding on. Get upset ahead of the divorce, and then I am trying not to think about it. Right now you can't be nervous now. Think about the good. I brought the babies rattles and all the same pacifiers. Daddy told me on the phone that he and the kids had not thing of the sort. They're in 3 identical pink dresses. I understand that it's too early for them to wear dresses, but they are so beautiful that I resisted the temptation to buy them. I think they will come in handy when they grow up. Thank you very much. You are so caring, and my own dad didn't even bother to ask what was needed. Baby, well, yes, God is his judge. He apparently has other more important things to do, and worries, and the children are on the team. All 3 of them looked at the clock. It was time to feed the babies. Kolya looked at the girls and said, I can't stop looking at them. They're so funny, but I won't. You are not bothering. Feed me now. I will often come to me, father. I love children, of course. Come, let's be informal. We seem to be about the same age. I understand yourself, the more the better from cooking this good-natured guy. What a pity that he's confined to a wheelchair because he's such a good person. Anton was so tired of his mother's instructions and teachings that he began to think hard about how to do something and drive this Rita, who had already become hateful to him, away from his house forever, to erase her from his life, because there are so many pleasures and temptations around, and excellent girls without complexes flutter like butterflies. That's destiny. The villain turned out to be such a one who gave birth to 3 girls that he had never dreamed of. After consulting with a lawyer at his firm who recommended an experienced lawyer to him, Anton contacted him and told him what the essence of the matter was. After listening to the potential client, the lawyer immediately figured out a legal way. Nothing can be solved here as the customer wants. But after all, NATO is a lawyer who has cut his teeth in knowledge of the laws, and there for the experienced, a person full only know where to look for them. The amount he requested for a positive decision. Puzzled Anton, you are not too keen on the fee. Tried to be indignant, he. Well, judge for yourself. The lawyer answered, not at all embarrassed. The case is obviously a failure, and you want to get a positive result from me. I know how to solve your question, and many people don't even know about it after thinking about it. Anton agreed. The lawyer decided to talk to his wife. Approach to not, and methods of persuasion. And then one day when Rita was babysitting the little ones, and Platon Sergeyevich was resting in his room, the owner knocked on the gate, shouting that he will open himself. Having opened the gate, he saw an imposing man in an expensive coat and sparkling shoes, who politely inquired with Platon Sergeyevich, "With your permission, I am a lawyer, Rimon." He introduced himself. He said, "I have a number of questions for Rita. Come in, so as not to talk on the street." The owner invited the visitor into the house. As soon from the next room, the lawyer came out and looked around the situation aimlessly, and reasoning to himself, will not be able to use the fact profitably for the benefit of the client. Fla thought that it was him dreaming about Reyes. Yes, Raya, his colleague, is also a lawyer, the same oval face, lush red hair spreading over the shoulders, plump, such captivating sweet lips. Forgive me immediately, with a hoarse voice clearing his throat. What is your question to me? Ta answered in surprise, hushing up and not knowing what to say. The lawyer sat silently, and then Platon Sergeyevich came to his aid, listening attentively to this strange conversation and watching the guest's emotions. You won't mind if I suggest who you might have confused Rita with? He asked, and without waiting for an answer, he said himself, "This mobile." In these words, Rita was simply dumbfounded, as Platon Sergeyevich had just told about this story. And here he is, perhaps a witness that the sister exists, that she is alive. What other better reason could there be for joy, especially against the backdrop of... Rita has been having troubles lately, and she is slow, unlike the sharpening, and now she is in the institute. He is a lawyer with the guest of Raya. They have crossed paths at work more than once. A romance has started between them. They correspond from time to time. The lawyer, for the time being, did not tell the owner and Rita that in fact they have something more than a romance with Raya, and perhaps soon they will resign from this. The lawyer was hurt to the depths of his soul by the story, because he had no idea that such projects could be implemented. And at the same time, he understood perfectly well that in the current situation, he definitely would not be able to do anything for Anton, and he would not do anything, because then he would be acting not only to the detriment of Ritibutalso against their sister Rhea, and their relationship was completely different from the customer's version. Finally concluded that his client Anton is simply a vile person in favor of his ambitions, ready to sacrifice both the well-being of his wife and the fate of his children, whom he never found time to see right from Platon Sergeyevich's house. The lawyer called Reza, and she cried for a long time and talked with her sister. The next day at the hospitals, she looked at the children she carefully took. Them in her arms shuffled that Shielza wanted to have Herona. And at the same time, he understood perfectly well that in the current situation, he definitely would not be able to do anything for Anton, and he would not do anything, because then he would be acting not only to the detriment of Ritibutalso against their sister Rhea, and their relationship was completely different from the customer's version. Finally concluded that his client Anton is simply a vile person in favor of his ambitions, ready to sacrifice both the well-being of his wife and the fate of his children, whom he never found time to see right from Platon. And at the same time, he understood perfectly well that in the current situation, he definitely would not be able to do anything for Anton, and he would not do anything, because then he would be acting not only to the detriment of Ritibutalso against their sister Rhea, and their relationship was completely different from the customer's version. Finally concluded that his client Anton is simply a vile person in favor of his ambitions, ready to sacrifice both the well-being of his wife and the fate of his children, whom had never found time to see right from Platon Sergeevich's house. The lawyer called Reza, and she cried for a long time and talked with her sister. The next day at the hospitals, she looked at the children she carefully took. Them in her arms sheffelt that Shilza wanted to have Herona. And at the same time, he understood perfectly well that in the current situation, he definitely would not be able to do anything for Anton. And he would not do anything, because then he would be acting not only to the detriment of Ratibudal, so against their sister Rhea, and their relationship was completely different from the customer's version. Finally concluded that his client Anton is simply a vile person in favor of his ambitions, ready to sacrifice both the well-being of his wife and the fate of his children, whom had never found time to see right from Platon Sergeevich's house. The lawyer called Reza, and she cried for a long time and talked with her sister. The next day at the hospitals, she looked at the children she carefully took. Them in her arms sheffelt that Shilza wanted to have Herona. And at the same time, he understood that Nikolai, as a disabled person, cannot be deprived of housing, and his wife should give back the money invested in the purchase only if funds are available. And also the case on registration of the pension of the former climber has moved forward. The lawyer, Rice's fiancé, has dug up that at the time of the ascent to the summit of Kokava, the infection of the Ruyu expedition, the insurance company did not fulfill its obligations, but under the pressure of irrefutable evidence, even after several years. After receiving an injury, Nikolai was forced to pay the money, working as a secretary to her sister's lawyer. Rita quickly got into the role because although she graduated from a technical college, she gradually studied and understood the application of laws. Yes, and her accounting skills came in handy once them spably. She had to work with the will of some elderly person, but judging by according to the figures written down, a rather rich man apparently, when they were drawing up the will, either the owner of Toli himself, on the advice of a notary, made a miscalculation. An experienced lawyer could easily have used it to the detriment of the testator, even during his lifetime. Rita informed her sister about this, and she, accordingly, the client, the man. Arriving at Rice's office, she took a long time, thanked, generously paid, and even knowledge with Sue use for charity to those in need. I am a believer, and God tells us to share with those who suffer here. Tara and remembered about Nikolai, and asked the businessman if it is possible to help him perform an operation. After thinking a little, he agreed, adding, I actually have attitude to medicine. I am a co-owner of clinics. Just in the profile you mentioned, you try to prepare a medical report in a day or two. Conclusion on the injury specialists will look at, is it possible to do something? How happy everyone. Rita Nikolai, his father. Soon Nikolai was admitted to the clinic. They did the operation and it was successful. A month later, the patient was already moving around leaning on crutches, and then things went more fun. The athlete's strong body hoped that he will overcome the illness. Active physical exercises and the territory of his father's plot for all these troubles. Somehow, of course, Rita began to perceive him as a close and dear person, and once helping to swaddle one of the babies, accidentally hugged Rita. She did not move away, but on the contrary, closed her eyes with, I've been waiting for this for a long time. I thought you'd never make up your mind. I love you, Cully. I've loved you for a long time. And you're honest. The man abruptly turned Rita towards him and kissed her passionately, then whispered, you're my stupid girl. I also fell in love with you from the first minute. Is all you, but only a fool wouldn't say I decided. But now nothing prevents us from being together. I want to become your husband, and the girls can only dream of being the best father, and she agreed. Soon she and Nikolai filed an application to the civil registry office to coincide with the appointed date and to time it with her sister and her lawyer. The guests could not stop admiring the bride, slender and with lush red hair like two peas in a pod, similar to each other. Rita and Raya at this wedding. There were no extra or strangers, and Zina with her husband and Platon Sergeevich and Rita's former mother-in-law. They were all painfully close and dear to one family.